The next thing that you're looking for are people that are true fans of whatever it is that you're writing, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you go to an editor and they say, hey, do you work on romance? What romance writers do you enjoy? And they say, yes, I work on romance. Nora Roberts is great. Here's the thing. Nora Roberts is great. She is fantastic. However, that doesn't tell me that you are a fan of romance. That tells me that you are aware that Nora Roberts writes romance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, go a little deeper, especially if you are writing anything that's in the niches.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Jen Graybeal.
That is right. And it was a great episode. Jen is a coach and kind of a book coach. And she was a
former
editor. Yeah. And she just does a lot of things in the author community to support authors, does a lot of mindset work. It was a great interview.
Yeah, we talked to her about how to find an editor and frequent mistakes she sees authors making, trends she sees in publishing.
Yep.
It was a really good conversation.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
And this episode is the first episode. We're going to try something new. We're doing these post-show chats occasionally. Green room chats, maybe.
Green room chats. Yeah.
So that will come out for Patreon supporters, or not Patreon. What am I talking about?
We don't have Patreon, Sarah.
That will come out for supporters, and it will be on the feed. If you are a supporter, you should have a link to get that. It'll come out probably the day after today, I think.
Yeah.
This will go live on Wednesday. I think that'll come out Thursday.
Right.
And if you don't have your link, then you can contact support at buzzsprout.com, and they can help you get that link.
Yeah. So, and we talked a lot of mindset stuff with her in the green room chat. And it was great. I've thought about that conversation for a couple of days. Yeah. So
me too.
Really good. Yeah. It was good. Yeah. So what's been going on with you?
Well, I am working on the illustrations for the letters. I decided there will be an illustration for each letter, and they're going to be full color.
Yeah.
And I have somebody working on them with me, and I'm really loving what she's doing. And so this is what I've learned about illustrations and covers. It's good to give here's some inspiration. This is the clothing that I would like to see, something similar. This is the setting. This is what the landscape looks like, but not to give too many options. And so I spend a lot of time finding, here's 3 or 4 examples. And that's it. Yeah. And I send those and I describe what I want. And then, we go back and forth. Right. It's very collaborative. So I'm enjoying that. It's taking some time, but I think it'll be worth it. I think it'll just add that extra specialness to the letters. So, and, I just remembered this. My Murder Archery Manor got included in a cozy mystery box that's going out, I think this week or next week. Yeah. So of course I had to order one.
Yeah.
And so I will do an unboxing online when I do that.
That's great.
And, the other thing I was going to mention is that the K-drama podcast is going strong. I'm having a ton of fun with it, just talking to people. And even if you're not interested in K-drama, I have had a lot of writers on because, most people I know are writers.
Yeah. Correct.
And a lot of times we talk about story and character and things like that. So you might check it out if you're interested in that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's going on for me.
All right.
Excellent. It's been busy. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I've been writing, and in fact, this is going to come out on what's today? When is this coming out?
This one will be April 2nd. Yeah,
April 2nd. So by the end of that week, I should be done with my first draft.
Wow! Congratulations! That's huge.
Yep.
You need to go have a celebration dinner at least. What will you do?
Well, we're going somewhere, you and I,
that's true.
That weekend. So, yeah, I guess I'll do that.
We're going to a writer's retreat.
We are. But, so I'm pretty excited about it. And I came up with a title, which I think it's great, and I have the 3 tropes, and so it's made it a lot easier to write too. So,
That
it
is so
takes
I'm
me
so
a
happy
while
for
to
you.
everything to kinda coalesce and come into, like, focus, and then once
Uh-huh.
it does,
Yes.
I'm okay. But, we'll see, we'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, the drafting is easy. The drafting is easy, but, it's the editing for me that's harder, so
All right.
I will that'll probably take
But that's
a lot
such an
longer.
accomplishment.
Yeah,
That's such an
yeah,
accomplishment. That's so
it
good.
is. It
And
is.
so I have to ask, so this one you've kind of not talked about it as much
No.
going along. Has that helped you? Like keeping all that to for your writing sessions?
Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
because I have recently told some people, the title and the
Mhm.
thing, and I have noticed that I've had a little like, after I told them, I have had
Let down kinda?
a little letdown, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, okay, I've done that now." But I remind myself, "No, you actually haven't
In reality, you
done
have
that."
not.
Yeah, so
It's it's not on paper yet, right?
it's not on paper. So, anyway, yeah, that's what it is, and probably I mean, I'm not looking to put this out before summer at all.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just and after our conversation with the, person we talked to today, I'm like, "Maybe I'll wait," but I probably won't, but, uh,
Yeah,
anyway, yeah.
I think
So that's really
that's
it.
great
I
news.
mean, just hanging out with the grandkids. We had a big 5-year-old birthday, and everybody was
Ooh,
here, and it was super fun, and
that's cool.
yeah,
That's fun.
that's
Okay.
that's what I'm doing.
Okay. All
Uh,
right. Well, we should get on with the interview.
yes, we should because it's really great.
Yes, it is. All right. So here is Jen. Today, we are really excited to have Jen Graybeal here. How are you, Jen?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to chat with you guys.
Well, we're very excited to have you. We've been trying to get you on. We've talked about it, and of course, the minute I start talking, my dog starts barking.
Well, I'll take over and read the bio. Jen is dedicated to empowering authors through encouraging feedback, collaborative problem solving, and gently applied tough love. We always need a lot of that. In 10 years of coaching, workshops, and editing projects, she has helped over 1,000 authors create stories they are proud of and businesses that align with their individual visions of success. Jen is a certified creativity coach with a degree in English and an ever expanding TBR pile and a furball assistant that is usually on her lap.
An ever-expanding TBR pile, that is most of us, I think.
Yes.
Well, how did you get started working with authors?
I worked in corporate communications for 12 years, and when I left that, I knew that I did not want to do corporate work anymore. It was
Ever again?
I had gotten when I tell you I was in Silicon Valley, working in the tech world, and when I tell you I got to the point that I could no longer spell the word strategy, and I
Mhm.
was like, "This is a sign. This is a sign. I need to be doing something else." And so I so I was reading a lot, and honestly, it kind of started with my husband because he pointed out the credit card bill and the number of Amazon purchases that I had made. And it wasn't that I was spending a ton of money. I mean, books, as far
Mhm.
as
Books
far
don't
as,
count.
things go, the books are relatively inexpensive, but I had bought a lot of them in the course of a month. And he said, "Is there a way for you to get paid to do this stuff?" And I was like, that's actually really good. Good piece of feedback. Okay, let me see what I can do here. And I spent the next year um digging into the indie author world and figuring out what might be there for me to for where can I fit in? What can
Mhm.
I do? And because I knew that I didn't want to be an author, but funny enough, when I was a kid, I was one of those kids that I'd read everything in the classroom, and so the teacher would like send me out and send me to the library because she had nothing for me to do. So I'd go to the library. I spent a lot of time in the library and chit chatting with our librarian. Shout out to school librarians. They do amazing work.
Mm.
But one of the things that she and I chatted about one time was how books get made. And she
Yeah.
talked about how somebody writes a book and then they send it to an editor, and then the editors read the books and they decide which books get published. And I just remember that conversation of, there's a job for people to pay you to read books. And I went, I want that job. That's what I want to do. And, and life had just never taken me to New York City, and it just didn't kind of work out that way, to be in the place. But indie authors were everywhere, and indie author support people were everywhere. So I learned everything that I could about what that world looked like and what was different about editing fiction versus editing, um, executive messages and ghostwriting for executives and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so I learned everything I could about that. I learned everything I could about the industry and everything that I could about editing. And then built a website and hung up a shingle. Actually, this month, fun fact, this month is my 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
My first editing project that
Congratulations.
yeah.
That is great.
So I've been at this a long time, and I've just absolutely loved it. And when I started working with the first few books that I did were nonfiction. I did some business books, and like I said, I was ready to stop using the word strategy in a sentence. So so I had learned about fiction editing, and I went to a couple of writing groups. But when I found out there was a Romance Writers of America chapter that met about 3 miles from my house, I went, I think these are my people.
Yeah.
And I went, and they were lovely, and that was the place where I really started doing a lot of work. And the coaching stuff sort of came along pretty logically, because you read somebody's book and you give them some feedback, like, this is working, that's not working. My very first project was for romance authors, were some Christmas novellas. And this one author, she gave me her Christmas novella. Now she already had 6 or 7 books out. She had people that she could work with, but she was like, oh, you're trying to get started, I'm going to give you this little project and do it. And I read it and I proofread it, and I was so excited about it, but I didn't like the ending. And that's not the job of a proofreader. We're
Right.
not here to like change the book. We're here to like, look at typos and stuff. But I just didn't like the ending, and I told her, and I gave her I said, this is where you are. Here's some ideas about some ways that you can kind of change it up without having to change the whole story. But here's just some different ways that you can really put a nice bow on this ending.
Right.
And she was so excited that she and I did her next 10 books together.
Oh,
And I became her developmental editor.
Yeah.
And we did a lot. That was Janae Vale, and I'm forever grateful for her for just kind of embracing me and giving me a chance to work on her books. And I feel like we did some good stuff together. So
right.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
Do you do mostly developmental editing now, or do you do all different things?
Yeah. So I've progressed over the years into almost exclusively developmental editing. And actually in November I paused my editing business completely. After that many years of doing it, I've done pretty close to 250 books. I was just kind of burnt out and thought, this is something that's real hard for me to do right now. I'd even gotten to the point where I was saying no to a lot of people. I'd cut down on the number of books that I was taking. The people that if you were on my editing list, like, we were friends, we were close. And even those books were hard for me to get into. I was just too burnt out on it. So I've paused that area of the business and focus more on the coaching and the workshops. Yeah.
Okay.
And what's great about that kind of a change is that I stressed about it for months, because I didn't want to disappoint people. I knew that they had, we'd worked together. They had said very nice things about my editing and the feedback that I gave and the way that I work with my clients. And I was so nervous about disappointing anybody that so when I finally was like, no, this is what I have to do. This is necessary for me and for myself. And everybody was absolutely lovely. They were so kind, and they were like, Jen, it's a good thing that you're listening to your own advice. Because if any of my authors had come to me with the same, saying the same thing about how difficult it was to write and how burnt out that they were, I would have told them, just go take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break for a week or a month or a year or whatever it is that you need, because if you constantly feel like you're hitting your head against a wall, that's not something that you're making progress on, and you're not going to be able to do your best work. And so what are we at, like 6 months or 5 months or whatever it's been since I paused that side of the business. I feel so much better. I feel like I took a 50-pound backpack off my back, and my head just feels a lot clearer about a lot of other things. And so it's been really, really good for me to pause that. I don't know if that's something I'm going to restart. I'm just kind of going to keep it paused for a while longer and see where this goes. But but I think that I hope for everyone that we listen to ourselves, right?
Right. It's often hard to give advice that we would give to other people to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing when you can do that for yourself. Well, what do you wish authors knew about your field, about what you do for coaching and workshops and even editing, if you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for everyone is that every coach, every editor is going to come at their process a little differently. And so I wish that people would do a little bit more interviewing and a little bit more really take the time to interview people and find out more about them and see if they vibe together. You know what I mean? And it feels like you should just be able to look at someone I do copy editing, and you're like, well, I need copy editing, so clearly this is the person I'm supposed to work with. And that's just really not the way that it works. Some people give more advice. Some people have different styles. Some people, I I worked with an author, and I'm not going to say who she is, but she is somebody that I have a ton of respect for. I was a huge fan before we worked together, and she messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm looking for my proofreader can't do it. Can you proofread this book for me?" And I said, "Yeah, oh my God, I would absolutely love to do that." She said, "Oh, that's great. My proofreader hates my books." And I was just like, "Why would you work who doesn't like respect what you do?" And and I think it comes from this idea of like, oh, be harsh, right? Like rip it apart. I need somebody to rip this apart for me. And the thing of it is like is yeah, I mean, look, I've had to tell clients that you have to completely rewrite this book because it goes nowhere, and characters, and for all these different reasons, which is a scary conversation, by the way, because I was pretty sure she never spoke to me. She would never speak to me again. But she did, and she said thank you because it's what she needed to hear. But there was no ripping, there was no tearing. There is respect.
There's a way to do it nicely,
And there's respect for the story that you're trying to tell, and the goals that you have as an author and as a creator and as a storyteller. And so the number one thing you have to find when you're working with editors are people that have true respect for your work. And then the next thing that you're looking for are people that are true fans of whatever it is that you're writing, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you go to an editor and they say, hey, do you work on romance? What romance writers do you enjoy? And they say, yes, I work on romance. Nora Roberts is great. Here's the thing. Nora Roberts is great. She is fantastic. However, that doesn't tell me that you are a fan of romance. That tells me that you are aware that Nora Roberts writes romance. And so, go a little deeper, especially if you are writing anything that's in the niches, right? There's a lot of niches that are out there. Not everybody can edit monster romance. Not everybody can edit dark romance. Not everybody can do rom-coms. So you want to make sure that you're working with somebody that really is a fan. And when it comes to finding a coach, it's kind of the same thing. You got to think about, how do you take feedback? What type of thing are you looking for? Because there's a lot of really fantastic coaches that are out there, but they may not be the right coach for you.
Right.
And finding that match is the difference between being, continuing to be frustrated or finding a path forward and finding the clarity that you're looking for in your business.
Right.
And so really, really giving yourself a sense of what the options are that are out there. And a lot of coaches, not everybody certainly, but a lot of us will do a free call. Just have a free conversation. You can learn a lot about a person in 30 minutes and what they're doing, what their style is, and whether you just like talking to them, because that's really what it comes down to. I tell people it's like trying to find a hairstylist. But you can take a recommendation from anyone, right? Oh, my girl is great. My lady is fantastic. I've gone to her for 20 years, like whatever it is. But that may not be your person. That may not be the person who understands your hair and your vision and what it is that you want to do with it. And then, you tell them thank you and you pay your bill and you walk out and you just have to find somebody else. And sometimes that is the case. So I encourage people really to spend some time getting to know people and spend some time with coaches to figure out if this is your person, and they're helping you fix the thing that you're trying to fix, whatever it is.
You want someone to be straightforward and honest, but you don't want an adversarial role.
Yeah.
I mean, someone taking up like playing devil's advocate with everything you write, because that's frustrating. And and you can tell that pretty quickly in just a free call. I mean, you can just tell if that's someone's style, and if you like that, okay, but I do not.
Yeah. And also the things that they talk about, right? For some coaches are really prescriptive. They have like, okay, so you're struggling with writing. Okay, so here's the 10-step process that I'd like you to follow to, to feel better about it or create a schedule or whatever it is. And that works for a lot of people, but that's not how everybody works. Right. And Jamie, I know that you do a lot of coaching and helping people with their brand and helping people to do that, which is fantastic. But if you're not looking for brand coaching and marketing coaching and all those wonderful things that you do, right, then that might not be your person.
Yeah, if you're coming to me for grammar, you've come to the wrong person. I wouldn't take your money on principle alone.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. There's people that I'm like, I'm not your person. And I have a list. I just have a list of people. I'm like, you know what? If you're looking for other kinds of coaching and I'm just not your person, here's a list of people to go talk to, because because I'd rather the thing of it with authors is that, if you're in the industry at all, you know that the margins are slim. You know that there's some people that are making six figures and I'm thrilled and happy for them. But for a lot of people, they're in that position of working to make a profit, right? And or profits are kind of on the slim side, and they're trying to figure out, like, how can I do 10% better, 20% better, 30% better to really, feel like this is an income and get out of that space. So I don't want you spending your money on something that's not going to help you. And not have the conversations that you need to have to figure out where that is. And for me, a lot of my conversations are more mindset based. I'm happy to talk about craft. I can brainstorm story problems with you if that's if that's kind of where you are. I do talk a lot about marketing strategy. I don't talk a lot about marketing tactics. And the difference there is that because I'm not in Amazon ads every day. I don't do those. I'm not hands-on with that stuff. But I can talk to you about coming up with more of a strategy and figuring out how you want to approach the problems. And then there's other people for you to talk to if you want hands-on advice about your Facebook dashboard.
Correct. I tell the story. When I started, I sent my book, or 10 pages of my book, for a sample edit to 5 editors, and only one of them did not try to change my voice. And now it could have been because we had corresponded on Facebook, so she knew my voice a little bit, but yeah, I mean, so she is, of course, who I went with, because I didn't want anybody changing my voice, because that was what made the book different from everybody else's book, because it's a wake up in Vegas married trope. I mean, that's not original. So, something else had to be. So, yeah, that's one of the things you can look at too.
That's a super, super important thing. So especially for folks that are editing. If they say that they edit all genres, if you're in romance, I recommend that you find someone who really, truly understands the romance industry and really, truly has respect for it. And what those voices are and what the expectations are. Yeah.
Right. Well, just a little aside, I have to tell this story. Last year, I spoke at a conference in Oklahoma, and after I spoke, I sold books, and the next day, this woman came up to me and she introduced herself and gave me her card. And she said, "I'm an editor, and I read your book last night, or most of your book last night. And I have to tell you, who edited it?" Well, no, she said, "Who's your editor?" And I was thinking, oh, I told her because I was so proud. I'm always willing to tell people. She said, "I found many, many abysmal mistakes,"
Wow.
or whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, that book's been out almost 10 years. No one has found abysmal mistakes. And what I realized is she is not a romance rom-com editor, because she's probably talking about the fact that I have sentence fragments in my dialogue, and and I use words that are not always exactly correct because that's how my character talks. And so, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, because I'm telling you right now, that book does not have abysmal mistakes in it. Too many people have read it. Too many editor friends have read it, and they would have told me. So she just would not have been the right editor for me at all. So also that book's made me a lot of money. So, abysmal mistakes and all. Is there anything you wish you'd known about indie publishing or working with authors before you began?
I literally spent a year studying the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I didn't know or realize about indie authors was how many of them are building a business in the margins of their life.
Yeah.
So they have their working day jobs, or they are full-time caregivers for children or parents, that they are volunteers in their community, and they're doing all these things. And then when everyone is tucked into bed at 10 o'clock, they write from 10 to 12, or they get up and they write from 5 to 7 in the morning. And then, or they take their lunch hour and they use that lunch hour to like type on their phone. And the number of people that are building a business that they are passionate about in such small periods of time, I honestly, that overwhelmed me with just how much I wanted to be able to help and support them, because I found that to be so beautiful and so and just so inspiring.
Yeah.
That this is something that people are doing no matter what, and no matter how tired they are, and no matter how the day went. And so that I was not prepared for.
Right. Yeah. I think about the people that write with little kids. Like, holy crap. Like, I didn't have two brain cells to rub together
Me neither.
when I had little kids. And people are creating entire, universes and worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Men who support a family with a full-time job that I'm sure is stressful, because they're all stressful, and then come home, have family time, and then write. I mean, those are unsung heroes to me, because I've been fortunate enough I did have a full-time job for a while, but I've just been fortunate enough not to have to do that. And I really applaud those people.
Well, what do you see authors doing that they do because they think they have to, but is really not producing results?
Oh gosh. Okay. This is going to be controversial, but I'm going to say it. And it's social media.
Yeah.
Everybody has that on their to-do list of posting every day or posting frequently and stressing about it. And I have to ask, to what end? Like, what are you trying to do with it? Because there's this, you have to do it, right? There's this have to, should kind of thing about it. But what are the results that you're really looking for? And I think that this is one of those, like, take a couple of steps back and really think about how you can use it. I do think that there's this desire to do it because we're supposed to. But back in the day, right, social media was something that you could use, and it was good for outreach. And certain products especially were really good for finding people that had never heard of you before. And I just don't feel like, with a lot of the changes that have happened in the last few years, that is something that is easy now. It used to be easy to do that. Now you really have to have an outreach plan. You have to be focused on on connecting with people that are not currently your followers. By the same token, it used to be that whatever you shared online, your followers were going to see it. They may not all see it the same day, but they're going to see it.
Right.
And that's no longer the case.
Yeah.
We know that only about 10% of the people that follow you are going to see anything. So we kind of have to get out of this mode of thinking that social media is a fix-all and serves all these purposes.
Right.
Because it's just changed too much. And it was great because it's free, and it is, but you got to remember that it's free for 10% of the people that follow you. So I think that there's a big change that people can make about the way that they are using it. Now, I will say TikTok is in a different category because I do feel like TikTok is much better about outreach. So if you're looking for outreach, that's why TikTok serves that purpose. Because the way that the algorithm works, if you like enough book things, you'll get into the book talk neighborhood and you'll learn a lot about books and stories and readers and authors and all those kinds of things that we find in book talk. But the other ones are they're not that place anymore. So
they're not.
I'd recommend a lot of times if they find social media frustrating. Some people shine on social media. They can use it as like a journal or a notebook or they talk about things and they are very comfortable on it. And hey, more power to you. Go do that. For anybody that finds it frustrating or finds it or feels like that's just shouting into the void, I tell them instead to think about it as an extension of your newsletter. Right? Your newsletter followers are your fans. You know that they have probably read at least one of your books before they join the newsletter.
Right.
And so if you think about your newsletter, some people like getting the emails. They like the newsletter emails. And some people would prefer to find you on social media. So look at it as sort of that extension, that these are fans who are there. They want to hear about your books. They want to hear about your writing. They want to hear about your launches, all that kind of stuff. Maybe share a little bit of personal information of whatever you're comfortable with. But think about them more like that as opposed to using it as a platform for sales. And outreach is a whole different activity that you want to pursue.
Yeah. No, I agree. And in fact, I have been kicking around the idea of I pay someone to post in my reader group and then I pop in, and stuff. But I'm actually thinking about cutting that back because so few people are seeing the post. And there's really it's the same 5 or 6 people interacting on everything. And it's not a lot of money, but it's money I don't have to spend right now.
Yeah.
And then when I have a book out, because I haven't had one out, when I have a book out, then, I maybe can start back. But it's just like I started it when my sister was sick and I wasn't online and stuff. And I just didn't stop. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if I need to be doing I just stuff because nobody's seeing it. If it were any other platform, it'd be different. Or if it was TikTok, that'd be different. But it's not. It's Facebook. Yeah.
And the other thing that we have too is that sort of separate from the whole how the algorithms work and everything is that a lot of people have realized spending too much time on social media, whatever platform it is, but spending too much time on there is not good for them. It affects your ability to focus. It affects your ability to concentrate. It affects maybe your moods and how you're feeling, depending on the type of people that you're following and what types of things that they share. And it's sort of has this ability to shift your emotions quickly. One second you're looking at somebody's cute puppy video of isn't it hilarious about my dog, and the next one is something upsetting or terrible, and then the next one is buy my book. You know what I mean? And so you're kind of all over the place when you're on there. So a lot of people have realized that they have to decrease the amount of time that they spend on it. So on top of the algorithms, sort of deciding who gets to see what, we also have people that are leaving platforms for a lot of reasons, which then kind of begs the question, okay, so if you have if you have a Facebook group, can you transition them to something else that feels more comfortable? Patreon is a platform that people are using and being able to sort of monetize those followers. Substack has a free option as well as a paid option, and some people find that to be a little bit more friendly and less of a filter. So the information that we get them again, those are email based. So, some people like that or don't like that. But I think that there's also an opportunity for a lot of authors to experiment. I talk a lot about experimentation in my workshops because there's so many things that are outside of our control. Pretty much the only thing the authors get to control is what goes on inside the book, right? You pick the words, you pick the stories, you pick the tropes that you want to explore, you pick the mysteries and the commentary that you want to make. But we don't get to control how Facebook, shows people our stuff. We don't get to control when Instagram changes the algorithm. We don't get to control, cover trends and those kinds of things, right? So we're here at a time where we have to be able to experiment and find out what works, let it ride for a while, and then when change happens, we have to do our evaluation. We have to be able to respond to that change. And some people are noticing a decrease in attention spans, for example. And so they've gone to serializing their books. I know a couple of authors are putting out a chapter at a time via Patreon and putting that information out there and just kind of sharing those stories. And then eventually when that book is done, they'll package it all up and they'll put it for sale, but they've already got kind of a fan base that's interested in it.
Right.
And so they've made a little bit of money in the process of writing, which is kind of a different idea. Some folks were really enjoying that serialization and putting things out there. So I think that there's a lot of other ways for us to kind of come at this idea of building a readership and engaging with those readers that goes beyond social media as we've traditionally used it, beyond the Instagrams and the TikToks.
Right. That's great. Well, what are some of the common mistakes you see authors making with their books and stories?
What's funny is that one of the things that I hear a lot from authors is this idea that I'm doing it wrong. And I think that comes from, we all sat in school and teachers would tell you how to outline, or that you had to have a certain plan or whatever. And it just doesn't work for everyone to write that way.
And while you were being sent out because you knew everything, they were asking my parents, how long can she stay? Like, can she stay longer?
I think just sort of accepting the fact that writing can take a lot of different pathways to get to this book. And just kind of respecting that. I'm all for experimenting. Like I said, I'm all for experimenting. If you've never outlined a book, try outlining a book and see if that helps. Try outlining 3 chapters and then write those, and then outline the next 3 chapters and write those. Or, if you kind of know some things that are happening, Diana Gabaldon has talked about how she has like visions of scenes and she just writes a whole bunch of scenes and then she figures out how they go together afterwards. Right. I often talk about writing a book it's like putting together Legos. You can switch things out and move things around and recreate and rebuild in a lot of different ways before you get to the end. Right. And none of them are wrong. It's not wrong in the way that you're doing it. You want to think about deadlines. Obviously, if you have contract deadlines, if you've promised that to your editor that you're going to have it to them by April 20th, then you got to turn that book in. Make sure that you're in communication if things aren't going the way that you think that they're going. Make sure that you're talking to your team about if you need some help or things are stuck. But just sort of respect whatever process that your brain enjoys, and do what makes your brain happy. Right. So, so making sure that you're focused on that, I think is a big one. The second thing I think that people, the mistakes that people are making is when they say, my books are not selling, which means I'm a bad writer. And therefore I'm going to go rewrite that book because it's not selling. And look, maybe, I don't know. Did you work with an editor? Do you have a critique partner? Have other people read the book that would be honest with you and give you feedback?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
chances are real good. The book is fine and your problem is marketing.
Yeah.
That might be something as simple as your cover and your blurb are not right. It might be that the way that you talk about the book doesn't connect it with the right readers. Marketing is this big, gigantic umbrella of stuff that comes down to teeny tiny details.
Right.
And those teeny tiny details are real frustrating and very hard to get right. And so there's so you have to be willing to sort of iterate on your marketing side and what your messaging looks like in order to connect with the right readers to be able to sell those books. Now, if people are reading the books and they're giving you bad reviews, that's a whole different problem. But if the book is not selling, it's not because the writing is bad.
Right. Very good.
We have to spend more, unfortunately, time and energy. And I think traditionally published authors are seeing the same thing, that if their publishing house is not giving them the marketing support that they need in order to sell a lot of books, they have to figure out what that looks like. And whether that's free stuff or paid stuff or whatever it is, like there's ways forward that are free, there's things that are low cost, and there's things that are more expensive. So finding your pathway forward in marketing is the way that you get more sales.
That's
great.
On the flip side, do you see any common characteristics between authors that are doing really well, that have done really well for a long time? Because you've worked with a lot of different authors.
I've worked with a lot of authors. I think the number one thing that I see about authors that do well is that they have a real solid team around them. So I talk a lot about the importance of team. Sometimes your team members are people that you pay or that have a financial, connection here. Anybody that's been in Trad Pub knows that if your agent doesn't believe in your work, it's not going to go anywhere, right? If you have a publishing house that doesn't get behind your work, it's not going to go anywhere. So having the right people around you, so whether those are critique partners, editors and agents that are part of Trad Pub, or editors and team members that are part of your self-pub journey, the coaches that you work with, the whatever other resources that you're tapping into, your VA, PA, digital marketing assistants, mastermind groups, whoever's on your group chat. All of that is a team that helps you to be the best author and the best business person that you can be.
Right.
And if you don't have that team, you need to spend some time putting that team together.
What you said just then is very interesting. You need to spend time putting that team together. If you're not in a group chat, don't sit around waiting for somebody to put together a group chat and invite you. You put together the group chat. From people you meet at conferences or in Facebook groups you're in, just, if there's kind of a thread that's a common theme and you've all commented on it, put everybody in a group and send a group text, and you would be shocked at how that just blossoms into something really fun and supportive. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, because I think a lot of people wait for people to be invited, and you don't have to be invited. You can do the inviting.
You know what it is like we tend to forget that most authors are introverts, right? We tend to, some people are, we can be super friendly when we're at conferences or whatever, but we spend an awful lot of time, alone, hands on keyboard, right?
Yeah.
And remember, most of us are introverts. And so if everybody is waiting for someone else to start the group chat, right? That group chat doesn't fit. So just start a group chat, and people can leave if they want to leave. Like, it's okay. But it's finding some people, and, short term, long term, but it's fine. It's really about finding your people, and that takes effort.
Yeah.
And if, sometimes these people become friends of yours, but I want to be real cautious here about making sure that you understand that there are author friends and there's publishing friends that you'll have. And those friendships are wonderful, wonderful things, but there's also a business side to this, and it's okay to have colleagues that are not friends. And those colleagues are people that are able to talk to you from a business perspective and have those kinds of conversations with you.
Right.
I tend to think about and describe to authors, to find like essentially 3 different kinds of teams that you're looking for. So number 1 is your writing team. These are your critique partners. Sometimes it's your developmental editor, that type of thing, the people that are really going to help you make the book the best it can be. Second group is your publishing, like to get the publishing part done. Some people are doing their own formatting and, doing their own covers and all that kind of stuff. But those people that can really help you to get that stuff put together correctly.
Right.
And packaged nicely. And then your third group is your marketing group. Who are the people that if you post on Instagram, they're going to share it on Instagram? Well, we talked a little bit about outreach and the struggle with outreach. Well, one of the ways that we can leverage that free Instagram tool is to have other people talk about you, right? So their 10% of their followers get to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you got 10 people, then 100%.
Yeah. Who are the people that when you post about your cover are gonna highlight it and say, "Oh my gosh, look at Jamie's beautiful cover. Oh my gosh, guys, look at what Sarah is doing in the mystery space. Like this is fabulous. You guys are gonna die." So, well, somebody's gonna die.
So he's definitely gonna die in my books.
That's how Sarah rolls. And so being able to know that you have those people around you who are going to post about you on social media, they're going to talk about you. They might review your books, and
Right.
you can have authors reviewing your books as well as the beta or ARC team people that you have out there. So how are you curating that list of people that are supporting you, and of course that you are supporting back, right? And there's a certain element of this. Of course, you want people that are writing something similar to what it is that you're writing, rom-com writers or cozy writers or what have you. But there's nothing to say that you can't support each other, right? You can also, you can support someone who is writing outside of what it is that you write because you do think that their book is great. And you can certainly do newsletter swaps and that kind of stuff, but there's nothing quite like that organic, guys, I read this book. I do not know this person. I don't know this author at all, but I read this book and I love this book. And when one of my favorite authors tells me that I should read a book because she enjoyed it.
Right.
I mean, again, we talked about my ever expanding TBR pile. This is why I have a problem.
Well, that's why I read The Hunger Games, because Myers.
Stephanie Myers?
Twilight. Oh my gosh. Stephanie Myers. Those 2 brain cells were not rubbing together at the right time just then. Stephanie Myers was talking about The Hunger Games, and that's why I read The Hunger Games. So, yeah. And now I'm a diehard fan. So, yeah. Well, you've worked with a wide range of authors and genres. Do you see any trends? I mean, what's hot right now?
Oh gosh. Okay. Trends. Number 1 is definitely more self-pub and hybrid authors. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are seeing the value in that. And I think one of the reasons we see it is that there's been such an expansion of the support systems available to you. So you have, there's a lot of people that are out there that have been doing this for a long time that have a lot of knowledge that they're ready to share and help people to be really successful.
Yeah.
I also think, again, because of the massive number of changes that have kind of gone on in the industry, I'm seeing a lot less interest in making a list. Things like the New York Times, the USA Today, we know that those have undergone a lot of changes, and I think everybody understands that, how those things get built and also what they're missing. There's lots of authors that sell lots of books that never appear on those things. So making a list is a cool thing to be able to say. Don't get me wrong. It's hard work to make those lists, but there's other ways to be successful, and there's other ways to meet the goals that you have for yourself and for your business that don't involve them. So I think that's something that I've definitely seen a decrease in.
Right.
And then, like I said before, this alternate way of connecting with our readers, alternate ways of telling stories, serialization, focusing more on building out things like Patreons and Substacks and those types of places to be able to get more readers and better connect. And then this is a small one. I'm not real sure where this is going to go, but I know there are some folks that are looking at doing recordings of their book and releasing them in a podcast style. So that one's more of a challenge. Either you're paying somebody to a voice actor who's doing it, or maybe you have friends and family that are willing to do that kind of stuff, whatever. But I think that experimentation with things like a podcast, with the style of releasing an audiobook, taking those audiobooks for everyone that has invested in the creation of an audiobook. What are some other ways that you can utilize those clips? And is that a YouTube thing that you're going to do? Is that right? So figuring out how we can use some of these other platforms to be able to build an audience and sell more books and monetize in a way that maybe is different than just depending on Amazon sales. So,
yeah, very interesting. Very good. Yeah. I did that with one of my books, my first historical series. I took the audiobook and I created a little intro I was going to do each chapter. And then I was like, this is going to go on way too long. So I started combining. I was like, okay, we'll do chapters 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And it did really well. And I still get lots of downloads. And I'm going to promote it this summer and say to my newsletter list, if you're going on a drive this summer and you need something to listen to in the car, you can get the audiobook plus my little commentary on it. Interesting things I learned about researching these 2 chapters. So
that's really great. Yeah.
The rewatch podcasts are so popular. Why not a reread podcast?
Yeah.
For your own books.
Well, have you seen indie publishing change in general?
There's sort of this combination of one, even little things like being able to format your own book. Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when I first started, people were looking for professional book format. And that was an expense that people needed to cover. And then, of course, every time you made a change, if you wanted to change your back matter and add new books that you've published and everything, that's more. There's more.
Right.
And so now we have things like Atticus and Vellum, and authors can change their back matter every week if that's where they want to spend their time.
Right.
So the software that's been available to them, the number of folks that are here to help, things like the services that BookFunnel provides, the services that various ways that authors can connect, these other platforms like GoFundMe and Kickstarter, to be able to raise money if you want to do something, and have the money ahead of time, but instead of depending on it coming later, has been hugely beneficial for so many authors. I know you've played around with it, Sarah. Not played around with it. You've been done.
I've dabbled in it compared to done it. Yeah.
And to have that money in advance, an advance payment is.
It's a completely different way to think about publishing. It's it's completely different. It's kind of a game changer. Lots of people are doing several Kickstarters every year, which I can't handle that. But that's a huge change.
Well, okay. So what does their team look like that helps them to do that many Kickstarters every year, right? There's plenty of authors that are like, you know what, I just want to write. Well, that's cool. Like, you can just write. There's nothing wrong with having writing as a hobby and writing for yourself and all that kind of stuff. What the difference is, do you want to sell books, right? And if you want to sell books, you have to do the business and the marketing side of it, right? And if you don't want to do that, then you either need to hire somebody or you need to be happy with just writing, because there's nothing wrong with writing and loving what you write.
Correct. Well, you have a podcast that's going to start pretty soon. What's the name of it? And I know you're not exactly sure when it's going to start, but kind of give us an idea what it's going to be about.
Give us a preview.
So it's called Books, Business, and Mindset. And and that's really what I've built my coaching business on. So I have I've edited upwards of 250 books, so I know a lot about the book writing process from lots of different kinds of people, lots of different kinds of authors. So So I talk a lot about books and craft and brainstorming and working out your story problems, that kind of thing. And then the business side, like I've talked about today, the business side is something that when you're ready to sort of make that shift from writing is my fun hobby to I want to make money at writing, we can talk about what that mindset shift looks like. That, how do you build a business and what are the elements that you want to have and how do you make that work for you?
Right.
In whatever the rest of your life looks like, right? Like I said, a lot of people do this in the margins. And at some point you want those margins to get a little bigger. You want to be able to dedicate that time. So we have a lot of conversations about that. I'm somebody that, even when I was working in corporate, I worked at home a lot, and that blurring of the lines of where you are and what you're supposed to be doing can be a challenge for a lot of people. So we can work through that. And then mindset. There's a lot of mindset issues here with the challenge of being a professional creative that folks just aren't. They seem to be surprised by. They are very surprised by what that really truly looks like. We didn't talk a lot today about filling the well. And a lot of times that kind of gets categorized with things like self-care. I went and got my mani-pedi. I took care of myself, and nothing wrong with a mani-pedi, but there's so much more to it when you are a professional creative, when you are someone that needs to find ways to be inspired, ways to find, ways to laugh, ways to cry, and really connect with that emotional experience that you need to have, that you'll then sort of put into your books. And how do you find ways to do that are good and kind and healthy for you? And like I said, where do you find your inspiration, and what does that really look like in terms of being outside of your house or inside of your house, or working your way through the things that get difficult, and understanding a little bit about how your brain works, and what are the things that you can do that actually help your brain versus the things that get in your way that are more about procrastination versus inspiration. Yeah.
Now I just feel like you're meddling is what I feel, but that's just me.
So those are the things I talk about. I had a clubhouse for about a year and a half, and I did a workshop every week in that clubhouse. And that was another one. When they changed up the interface and everything about Clubhouse, I was like, this is so frustrating to me. So I stopped doing it. But I have a lot of content from 10 years of coaching and 10 years of working with authors. So I have all kinds of things to say. So, and then there'll be some fun guests that'll come and chat with me, and hopefully you guys will join me one day.
Oh, love to.
Yeah. Well, when that comes out, you'll probably have a link on your website, right?
Absolutely. There'll be a link on the website.
Tell everyone where they can find out about you and your coaching and all that you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to be part of that 10% that follows me on Instagram, you can do that. I am Jen the Editor. I got lucky, I tell you, because I am Jen the Editor on Instagram, on Threads, and on Blue Sky. So I was super excited to be able to grab all those names. I was Jen the Editor on Twitter, but I have not updated anything on Twitter in 6 years, and I don't plan to. But yeah, so I'm Jen the Editor on those. You can follow me on Facebook, Jennifer Graybeal, and my website is jengraybeal.com, and you can find out about coaching. You can sign up for a 30-minute coaching session, and in September I will be running my Work It program again. Work It is a 6-week coaching intensive for authors. We talk about books, business, and mindset. So
excellent.
It is. It's a combination of workshops and group coaching, one-on-one coaching to really figure out what you need to do, get some clarity around your next steps, and really kind of grow your business. So
excellent. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for a great, great conversation.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. So we will have all those links in the show notes, and those will be at wishidknownthenforwriters.com. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to that same links /support, and we'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.